Hi, Debbie here. So let's get ready to start making this photo album. And the paper that we're going to be using is the Designs by Shellie Beauty in Blues paper. And I will have a link to the materials list and the cutting guide in the description box below where you can go over and download those, and you'll have those on hand. So now the album we're going to be using is the Frank Garcia Suprema. It's called Memory Hardware Magnetic Dossier Journal. So this is the one we're going to be using. And this is what it looks like. So, and it's magnetic, like it says, and it opens like this. And you have the waterfall in the middle. Now, before we even get started on doing any paper cutting or anything to embellish, I'm going to be altering this just a little bit. I had gotten one of these that got ruined in the mail, and instead of throwing it out, I decided to take it apart and use what I could from it. So I took the magnets out, and I also took the waterfall part out. And this is what I took out of the damaged album. Now it's going to be one short of the waterfall pieces because that did get destroyed. So but anyway, what I decided to do was use this in this album, because when you look at this album and you put it together like this, when you look in there, you've got a lot of empty room here that I thought, well, I can use that room. So what I did is I took this one from the damaged album, and I put it over here, and I actually just paper clipped it for a minute so that I could close my book to see if it would stay closed with this added to it, because this is actually made out of chipboard, thin chipboard, so it's kind of heavy. So I wasn't sure if I closed my album if it was going to be able to take that weight, but it did. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got score tape all on the back, and I'm going to glue it down really, really well. And that's going to be the very first thing I do. So, and since it's one short, it's going to be it's not going to match up exactly to this page, but that's okay. I'm going to just center it here, and then I'm going to just glue that down, and then I'll have two waterfalls in this album. Now, if you would like to also add a waterfall on this side, you can use craft paper, which would actually be lighter, which I'm sure would be fine when you close your book. It's not going to have the weight to pop it open. Well, anyway, if you decide you want to do that for your, and put it on this, what you're going to need is you're going to need, for your base, a piece that's 5 3/4 by 8 3/4. And then that will just fit right here on this panel. And then for your waterfall pieces, you're going to want to cut 5 3/4 by 4 3/4, and you're going to need 12 of them, because there are actually 12 of these on here. And then you're going to turn it to the 4 3/4 side here, and then score it, the 4 3/4 side here, and then score it at a 1/2 inch. And then you just grease it, and then you'll put it, and then you'll just start lining up your waterfall, and then you'll have a waterfall on both sides if you want to do it that way, which I think is really ideal, because you get so much. So now we're going to have 24 places for photos as opposed to just the 12 over here, and you get to actually use this panel right here instead of just leaving it empty. Or I mean, you could, if you didn't want to put another waterfall, you can add a pocket, but I'm going to be doing the waterfall. So that's the very first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to glue my waterfall on, close my album, make sure that it does stay closed, and if it doesn't, this is the time I can add more magnets before I add my pattern paper. So let me go ahead and do this, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, while my cement is setting up, or my glue is cementing up for my waterfall, I'm going to show you, for those of you who haven't done a waterfall, let me just show you how you put them together. So you need to cut your pieces, like I said, at 5 3/4 by 4 3/4. Now we're going to put it on your little scoreboard at the 4 3/4 side here, and then we're going to score it at a 1/2 inch. Just like that. Okay, and then on your base page, you're going to take one of your little waterfalls, and you're just going to line it up, not all the way to the top. I'd leave it maybe 1/4 inch from the top. Yeah, you don't have to take it all the way up to the very tippity top. I would leave maybe 1/4 inch, like so, and then start. So what you do is with your flap, you're going to put glue on your flap, or score tape, you know, whichever you prefer, and then you're going to put it, you're going to glue it down like that. And then you're going to flip it up and see how that's going to be glued down. And you're going to take your second piece and you're going to attach your glue or score tape here, and then with this still folded flat down, you're going to take this and you're going to put it right up against this piece here. See how it's the very bottom where you've added it? That's where you're going to go, right here. So you're just going to line it up just like that and put it down just underneath where you have your little fold there. And then you'll lift this one up and that'll be there. And then you take your next one, add your glue or score tape, put it up right against that one, and make sure everything stays lined up, and you just do that for all 12 pieces. Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that, and let me see if my glue is set up enough. Okay, I have it all glued in and I think it's good to go. Now, one thing you need to know is how you're going to store your album. Now, when I put my album together, I usually store my albums standing up like this. But if you're going to be storing your album laying down, you might want to, yeah, these magnets are really tight, you might want to, see how this is going to open? You might want to put a closure on here to hold this down so it doesn't move. But since I store mine standing up, I don't need to do that, so I'm not going to be doing that for this. So I don't need to put any kind of a closure to keep my waterfall down. So the next thing we're going to do is pick out our paper to start putting on our album, because that's how I do mine. I do all my papers first and I do my embellishing last. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide what papers I'm going to want for the front, well, for my album on the outside, for the front, the side, and the back. And what I've decided to do is for the front and the back, I'm going to be using this sheet right here, and it looks like this on the back. And for the little sides here, I'm going to be using this sheet right here, and it looks like this on the back. So what I need to do is just cut my sizes, and what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to cut two that are 8 3/4 by 5 3/4. That would be for the front and back, you know, the large covers. And for the spines, the two spines, you're going to need to cut two that are 8 3/4 by 2 3/4. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go cut my papers, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so I have my pieces cut out. I have my two pieces for the front and the back, and I have my two pieces for the spine. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to ink my edges. I like to ink my edges. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't like to. And I'm going to be using the Distress Inks by Tim Holtz. I'm going to be using the walnut stain. And J&S Hobbies and Crafts does have this in their shop, so you can order that. Because I think the walnut and the blue really go good together. So I am going to go ink up all my edges, and then I'll be right back. Okay, well I have all my edges inked, so they're all inked, all of them. So the next thing we need to do is we need to put the score tape on the back of them. And I've already done that. So you're just going to wait and take your score tape, go around the whole perimeter, and put one down the middle, and then one on either side. So it kind of looks like this. And that's what we'll do. We'll do that for the front and back, and you'll do that also for the spine. I just got, around the border, one down the middle. Excuse me, because I'm going to fill the other spots in with the wet glue. So that gives me a little bit of wiggle room when I go to attach these to my album. And so what we're going to do is you're just going to take your paper. And what you need to do also, I'm thinking of it, if you look really careful in the background of this paper, you're going to see that there's script. You're going to want to make sure it's going the right way and not upside down. And because I didn't notice it at first. I didn't notice it the first time. Well, anyway, what you're going to need to do is just center it on your album and then just glue it down. Now the dimensions that we cut here are for a 1/4 inch border. If you want a smaller border, then you just cut your papers a little bit larger. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just center this, remove the score tape backing, add a little bit of wet glue, and then I'm just going to glue that down, and I'm going to do it to the front, the back, and the two spines, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, I have my papers on. This is what it looks like right now. This is the front, and this is the spine, the back, and then the other spine. So now what we need to do is just open our album. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sheet here, looks like this, and it's this on the back. I am going to be cutting this 5 3/4 down, and then from this side over 5 3/4 down, because I want this image to go on the inside cover like that, and I want this to go on this page right here. So I'm going to be cutting that to do that. Well, let me cut it and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. So I have this one here, and then they're not glued down yet, I just have them set, just sitting so you could see what it's going to look like. So that's what I have. So when you open up your album the first time, it's going to go like that. You'll have these two. And then when you open it all the way, for the inside here on these two inside panels right here, this one and this one, I'm going to use this paper right here, and it looks like that on the back. It's actually the back side of the one we just cut. And then I'm going to put those in there like that, so it'll be right in here. So I'm going to cut these. I believe these are, I think they're 3 3/4 by 8 3/4, but let's double check on that. Now these are cut, 5 3/4 by 8 3/4. That's what these were. So let me go cut these, and then I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. So I have everything's just sitting to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. We have this over here on this side. So all we need to do now is just place our score tape all around the perimeter and one down the middle. So all you need is just one down the middle on the one that's going on these little spines. But this one here, just do like we did on the front. Put one all the way around the perimeter, one down the middle, and then one on either side. And that should be enough to hold those. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what mine looks like. Also, for those of you who didn't put an extra waterfall here, what you might want to do is just cut another piece of this, 5 3/4 by 8 3/4, and put that down here. Sorry, not here. Put it here on this side, on this flap, like that. Just put that there, and then when you open it, and you have this piece over here, then you can put this piece over here, and did you just see what I just did? I put my score tape on the wrong side. Well, anyway, you would put it here, and now I need to figure out what I'm going to do about my boo-boo. I'll be right back. Okay, I decided I'd go with this one. It's this on the back for this, inside cover here. So I'll do that. And then I have this one going here. Yeah, I tried to remove the score tape and the paper just, was ripping, so I couldn't do that. So I'm going to go ahead and apply score tape to the back of these, ink up my edges, and I'll get them on my album and I'll show you what it looks like. And while I'm thinking of it, I think I might have said 2 3/4 across. It's 2.5 on these. It's 2.5 by 8 3/4. Yeah, I think I might have. I mean, in the cutting guide, those will be the right measurements, but I think I might have said the wrong thing when I was talking, so I just want to make sure I clarified that. Okay, I have everything glued in, so this is what we have so far. And then on this, and then this is going to go like that. So now, what we need to work on is the waterfall. If you only did the one waterfall, you're going to need to cut 25 pieces that are going to be 5 5/8 across and 3 3/8 down. So there'll be 5 5/8 by 3 3/4. And if you did 2 of them, that means you're going to need to cut 50. So, so I'm going to go through my papers, because we got plenty of papers left over, because we haven't used that many papers. Most of the papers with this album are actually are being used on the waterfall. So I'm going to go through my papers, cut out 50, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, now that was a lot of cutting. And you were probably thinking in the beginning, I have so much paper left over. Yeah, but boy, we really went through it cutting these up. So I have all mine cut. So all I need to do now is I just need to ink up all my edges and get them ready to, glue them into the book. And while you're cutting these out, be aware of all the little border that you have in here, your border pieces, because we might, or I am planning on taking these, because I saved as many as I could, because I was thinking what I'd like to do, if I have enough, is cut them down to fit in between here, because we have that little crafty, we have that little paper space here where there's nothing on it, so I thought maybe I'd cut them and put them in between up there. So that's what I'm planning on doing with the little borders, the border pieces that we have here. So, so let me do that. I'm going to go ink up all my pages. I have them all cut. And when I glue these on, I'm just probably going to just glue them on with wet glue when I glue them on instead of score tape. I don't think we need anything more than that, because when you mount your picture on, it's going to be fine. There's not going to be any weight or anything on them. So, and I just randomly just cut sizes. I mean, I try to keep, images centered or, not cut off and things like that. But yeah, I just went through all my papers and just pulled them out and started cutting the size. And so yeah, so let me ink, let me cut out some strips, and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, I have all my papers in now for the waterfall. And what I did, instead of using the little strips here of the paper, I had some little blue organza ribbon. Just a little, whoops, some organza ribbon. It's real sheer. That I decided to go ahead and put in between each page instead of the cutouts from the border. But you can use the cutouts from the border. I just wanted to go ahead and just use that ribbon on mine. And I also, with the bling on a roll, I'm using this also, and like I said, you can get this also at J&S Hobbies and Crafts. And I was putting that, let me tilt my camera, bring this down a little bit so you can see, right in the center of the ribbon. And because this is chipboard, it has that thickness to it, I think I'm going to be able to take this and actually put it in the middle of all my blue ribbons all the way through. So I think I'm going to do that on this. And so yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just put the bling on a roll on the tops of all my ribbons. And then I have all the waterfalls are completed. So I've got them all. They're all just cut. I know this was a lot of paper that this took. So and especially since I did 2 waterfalls, yeah, that was a lot of paper. So I mean, I still have some left, but this did take a big chunk out of the paper pad, which is good. I mean, because that's the whole idea, is to use the paper pad. And I was thinking about maybe even putting something down here, but because this was getting so thick, and then I was looking at it when I put it together, and now when you look at it, it's going to, the waterfall is going to hit the side edges inside, so I'm not going to be able to put this in there. So I'm just going to leave these exactly the way they are. So this is, so the inside I am going to say is more or less complete. I'll just put this bling on a roll in between each one of my pages, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start decorating on the outside. So give me a few minutes to do that and we'll start decorating the outside. Okay, well this is what it looks like with all the with me putting the bling on all the tops. So I really like that better. So I went ahead and just did that on all pages. So this is what we've got. Yeah, I like this much better. Instead of just the ribbon. I like the little touch of the bling here. And also it looks like I might be able to put a couple of little flowers up in this very top of these 2 spines here, but I'm going to wait and do that at the end so I can see exactly what flowers I have left to do that, because they're going to have to be little, and it's going to have to stay right in the area of the 2 darker pieces here on the panel piece there. So yeah, so what I need to do now is just clear off my table a little bit and start getting all my embellishments out to start decorating the cover. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I have out pretty much what I'm going to be using. The first thing I'm going to do is with the rose lace that was in my kit, this one right here. It's real pretty. I'm going to cut, well, I cut a piece off, and this is the size that I cut. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it right along the side here. And then I'm going to take some of the bling on a roll, and I am going to glue that down the side, so it's going to look like that. So let me go ahead and get that part done, and then we'll come back and I'll show what we're going to do next. Okay, well, I have the lace and the bling glued on, so that's what that looks like. Now for the next part, what I'm going to be using is the Heartfelt Creations Sweet Lilac Scrolling Cage. It's the HCD1 7172. I've used this once before in one of my design team projects. So I'm going to go ahead and reuse this again, and I am going to be using the bird cage again. So what I've done is I've cut out some cardstock, 3 layers of cardstock, and this blue here is actually from a piece of the paper from the Beauty and Blues. I just found a piece of blue paper that fit the die, and then I just cut it out because I wanted a blue cage instead of a white cage. And I tried to make it dimensional with layers of cardstock. And then what I'm going to do, and I also off-centered, if you can see it's off-centered a little bit here. And so I went ahead and did that. And then I was going to just glue that right like that. So let me do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so the bird cage is on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little flat back pearl. And this is the little 3/8 inch flat back pearls that you can get at J&S Hobbies and Crafts. And I'm just going to put that just like that on there. So let's do that. And then for the bottom of the cage right here, I'm going to take some of the bling on a roll and I'm going to cut it, and then I'm just going to glue that right down there. So let me do that and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, well, I've got my flowers out. Now these are all from my design team package. So I got the 49 in Market flowers here, and the Petaloos and the Tim Holtz, and I have all those here. And this is kind of like how I've arranged them on my album cover. And I did take 2 more of the flat back pearls, and I'm going to put those on the corners here. Nothing's glued down yet, but this is kind of like how I want the arrangement to look. So I'm going to go ahead and glue everything down, and then I'll show you how it turned out. Okay, this is what I've done so far for the cover. It's turning out really pretty. I went ahead and I put the bling on a roll around the paper here because it just looked like unfinished. So I added that, and I also added on one of my design team packages. I received this Nouveau Drops, and I believe it's called Ivory Seashell. And what I did with this is I placed it in the center of all the little flowers. So they're all in the center of the flowers here, the little Nouveau Drops. So this is what the cover looks like so far. Now the next thing is the spine. So I've got 2 spines to work with here, so I'm not really exactly sure what I'm going to do with that. But on the inside, I did go ahead and I added a little piece of lace, the tops of these spines. It's the little 1/2-inch lace that looks like this. I used that, and then I put 3 of the little blue flowers on the top. So this is pretty much going to be this for the inside of the book here. So that's going to be it. Now we can't put anything on this page, and we can't put anything on this page because this is where the magnets are, and this is what closes it. So you really can't, decorate those other than with pretty paper, which is what I've done. So now all I need to do is decide what I'm going to do with the spine on both sides, because I'm going to leave the back just like this. I'm not going to really do anything on the back of the album, but I would like to put a little something on the spine. I'm just not sure exactly yet what I'm going to do, so I just need to sit down and think about how I'm going to do that, and then when I do, I will come back and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, this is what I decided to do for the spine. I had these paper clay frames. I normally would use these frames here, and they sell these at J&S Hobbies and Crafts. These are I got it on backwards. These are by Tim Holtz, the Baroque frames, but I only had 1 and I needed 2. So I went ahead and just decided to use this paper clay ones that I had, and I just lightly rubbed some blue paint on them just so they weren't, totally white. And I added a piece of lace here, and some more of the bling on the roll, and some flowers, and that's what I did. And the image here, I just got out of the paper pad. I just put my frame over an image that I thought would look nice inside, and this is the one I picked. It's the little fence, so I did that on this side. Then over here on this one, everything's the same except the image is just a little different. This is the one with the woman with the leaning up against the car, and she has a literal butterfly in her finger. So that's what I did for the sides. So our album is complete. So I want to thank you all for watching, and for those of you who crafted along, and if you did, I would really love to see your album when you're finished. And I want to thank you, and I will see you again on my next tutorial. Bye for now.